In Malaysia, Tzu volunteers travel in a big truck to distribute hot food and drinking water to flood-affected residents. A Tzu volunteer visits disadvantaged students in tribal villages hoping to turn their life around with education. 歡迎收睇DaAi Headlines， 我係 Ruby 我哋一齊嚟睇下今日嘅內容。In Malaysia, the severe flood recently has caused many disasters in Klang, Selangor. Among them, Kampung Meru was one of the hardest hit areas. So the volunteers traveled in a big truck to distribute hot food and drinking water to the affected residents. Although 3 days have passed, the water has yet to recede. Many houses in Kampung Meru were still submerged in water. With power cuts and traffic suspension, affected people desperately need food. So the volunteers cooperated with city officials to host aid distribution.
I'm thankful to Tzu Chi for supporting us, supporting our society and the residents of Kampung Meru.
Currently, we can see that the water level in this Kampung Meru is very high, so we can only come here by a big truck, and volunteers can only stay in the truck to distribute food and drinking water to residents in need.
The water level has already reached the height of our knees, and it is generally difficult for a normal vehicle to enter. Owing to the bad weather, the sky soon turned dark. There were people asking for help with rescue lights.
Okay. 目前是晚上7点半，我们可以看到天空正下着毛毛。
It's currently 7:30 in the evening and it is drizzling now. Volunteers are transferring the hot food from a truck to a big truck, getting prepared to deliver it to another village.
On the way to another distribution point, one can still see affected residents wading through the water to higher places.
Aceh sudah makan ya belum?
Belum.
Belum.
Semalam tadi pagi pukul 11 makan.
Sampai sekarang.
Mau pergi banjir tak boleh pergi, sana air banyak tinggi. Sampai sini, sampai sana sini.
Kampung Meru was one of the hardest hit areas. Volunteers also sent supplies to the affected residents in the shelter, relieving their immediate difficulties. Flood have receded from some areas of Selangor, so the volunteers went there to visit affected residents and conduct disaster survey. They also helped the Dharma family clean up their home.
Rain has caused a lot of disasters in Klang, Selangor. After the floods have receded, Tzu Chi volunteers help each other clean up their homes. These things are one he phone's home were used by the old couple for their living. Tzu Chi volunteers spent 5 hours cleaning up everything. The volunteers also discovered a neighbor not knowing how to clean up his home, so they also lent him a hand.
We can help you remove the water from that room first.
Volunteers are also caring for the Dharma family while investigating disasters, allowing love to spread all over the place.
A fire also broke out in a Selangor's village in early December, burning down 14 houses. Fortunately, no one was injured. So the volunteers arrived to bring care and distribute consolation cash to the affected residents.
Returning to the fire-affected area, 14 Malay households were burned down as there were blockades set up at the scene. The fire occurred at Selangor's village, and it was suspected that a child playing with fire caused the accident. Gladly, no one was injured. Due to the rapid growth of the fire, besides her ID card, Rose Melissa was unable to bring items out of her house.
My house is burned down. I have nothing left. The home is gone and there's only what's left.
If the firefighters came later, my home would be completely burned down. But my rental home is completely destroyed.
My mother is near 80 years old and she was at home by herself during the fire. Gladly, someone took her out of the house.
From the time of the fire hazard till the evaluation period, Tzu Chi volunteers were always at the scene.
Since the first day of the fire hazard, Tzu Chi has been assisting us along the way. They are also caring for the affected residents and understanding what they need. On behalf of the Social Welfare Bureau, I would like to say thank you.
After the disaster, Tzu Chi volunteers arrived to distribute consolation money, hoping to assist affected residents in rebuilding their homes.
In Indonesia, after the Meru volcano erupted in East Java, the volunteers went to the hospital to distribute supplies and care for the wounded. They also raised support in hospitals, schools and TV stations so as to help the survivors in need.
When the Meru volcano erupted, residents ran away in a hurry. Tzu Chi volunteers in Surabaya, on the first day after the disaster, went to investigate the disaster area. They also cared for the wounded who were treated in the hospital and distributed condolences to others. Also, in response to the needs of the military and police, 600 portions of supplies, including bathing supplies, medicines, and masks, were also sent.
Everyone must stay at their post. It's really hard work. Thank you, Tzu Chi, for distributing vitamins and other supplies to military and police personnel.
In Jakarta, a fundraising campaign began with many different professions participating.
My colleagues are very responsive. They made me realize that, in fact, everyone has sincere love for their fellow citizens.
Yang saya tahu semuanya itu bisa ikut membantu.
Since we can't go to the disaster area, we can only help each other by raising funds and love. This is something our colleagues proposed to do.
The school not only imparts knowledge, but also nurtures the next generation with good moral character and a concept of sharing with each other.
Perasaan ingin membantu orang lain dan membantu sesama.
Concerned for the affected residents, regardless of the distance, many do not underestimate their own strength.
The purpose of education is to purify people's hearts. It starts with the teacher. We should let the students understand this concept. I hope more people will take action to help.
Every bit of kindness will be collected and sent to the disaster area, bringing unlimited warmth to all the survivors.
COVID has severely affected Sri Lanka's economy, with Tzu Chi conducting a second aid distribution in Kampung Meru and Colombo. Residents who received such supplies also repaid by donating to bamboo corn banks.
7 kinds of food are in this package, including rice. Tzu Chi is in Hambantota for the second distribution of supplies to help poor families affected by the pandemic.
Everybody are very happy to receive this packet.
Aid was not only given to DaAi village, but 3 neighboring villages. Those who received the bamboo coin bank last time were eager to give back, spreading good love and compassion, as well as giving encouragement to others.
From preparing the distribution, many volunteers happily joined. The pandemic has led to the emergency distribution, as many believed that it has really been a big help.
In Colombo, 2,000 households received help, and though there was a limited room in the Tzu Chi office, everyone kept perfect order and kept a safe distance.
This is the most priceless gift during the pandemic. It's a great help for me.
Many people are in need of help. We are very happy to participate, and I also brought my grandchildren to volunteer.
Using love to help during the pandemic, uninterrupted care and support continues during times of adversity.
In Hsinchu, although Tzu Chi volunteer Huang Qi-yin is a Catholic, she and other Tzu Chi volunteers will visit disadvantaged families in Wufeng Township every month. She helps disadvantaged students turn their life around with education, at the same time also enriching her own life.
I've always been a tomboy, and I even went on to major in engineering, so I've always not been afraid of challenges. There are a few times that we absolutely do not head up the mountain. One is, of course, when it's raining, and another is the first day the sun is out right after it rains. Mostly because right after it rains, the mountain walls retain a lot of the water. I've spent 10 years camping, and that means I often headed into the mountains, so I'm used to the road conditions like this. Tzu Chi is not only a charity group, but one that is very organized. It does a lot of reflecting and self-governing. Since young, we've been taught that helping another brings us happiness, right? When I joined Tzu Chi, I realized and felt what that truly meant. Her mother lived a life with particular habits, such as drinking, so her health wasn't the best. It was quite eventful for them in the past because there were lots of holes on rusted metal sheets, as maintenance was not kept up in the home. So when it rained, water would pour into the house. The repair work was mobilized by Zhubei's volunteer team. We purchased all the materials, and the brother volunteers came to demolish and rebuild.
OK 了，对不对？所以师姑，我们从这里联网的部侦测不到，哦，对，已经连线了，所以我们连上那个哈，连好之后。
As she couldn't go online, she didn't have other exposure to information, so her knowledge of things was a little behind that of other children her age.
If I have questions, then I can go online to ask my peers or the teacher. I can also make contacts with my family a lot more.
这个 OB 是不是比 OA 来得更长？
These children can change their life around through the opportunity to receive an education. So if they don't go to school, they will remain in the same condition as their parents.
She is strict like a teacher, but caring like a mother.
I think when you treat them with respect and honesty, the result of the friendship is more genuine and authentic.
In Taoyuan, after the pandemic eased, Timur can finally resume their free clinic. Over 100 Timur members, including doctors, pharmacists, and volunteers, went to a nursing home to serve senior citizens, bringing them long-awaited care.
We have 6 people, and we will go and support the dental free clinic over there. If we lack manpower, we will ask other volunteers to help out.
Affected by the pandemic, the long-awaited nursing home free clinic resumed once more. Over 100 team of members arrived to check nursing home residents' health condition.
谢谢医生看我的牙齿还有皮肤。
Inside the room, different medical services are provided for nursing home residents. Outside of the room, volunteers arrange playful activities for people. Dentist Chen Qiuyan has been participating in Tima free clinics for several years as he treated nursing home residents as his own children. Since he is getting older, he started to feel exhausted. I have been in the nursing home free clinic for years. My stamina is getting worse. So if young doctors can join our ranks, it will definitely help our free clinic team. With the company of Tzu Chi volunteers, residents felt the warmth of humanity as the love and care will continue on.
Recently, Tzu Chi held a concert to show appreciation to those who have involved in the fight against the pandemic. Several art groups were invited to give performances so as to spread positive energy to people in Taiwan.
Youth theater drummers beat the drums with rhythms, and the sound encouraged heroes to overcome difficulties.
Our firefighters constantly risk their lives in carrying out emergency work, so we are thankful to Tzu Chi volunteers for supporting us continuously.
True Percussion Group transmits crystal clear music through their instruments to replenish exhausted COVID fighters.
This is a feast of positive force. Using their skills, the performers can encourage people's minds. It's also important to note that during this post-pandemic era, we must encourage people to give of themselves.
The voices of the Lunar Chamber Choir bring back the power of stability for everyone.
Medical professionals and police on the front line have a lot of stress. This performance shows the support and appreciation from all walks of society. So I believe that this will be greatly encouraging to them.
I hope that the music can encourage our staff and also bring peace to our minds.
This concert is a gratitude to all the people who help fight against the pandemic and protect Taiwan.
According to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, there are 2 million people visiting psychiatric department per year, meaning that the medical needs of mental patients are quite high. During COVID pandemic, the care of many patients with mental disabilities have been severely affected. Today, we begin a new series to learn about the difficulties faced by these patients and their families, as well as how these patients could be a possible loophole in Taiwan's pandemic prevention.
Suddenly, she was bitten, and the patient in the acute psychiatric ward screams in pain. This mentally challenged person, Ajen, has attacked others and needed to receive emergency treatment.
If she's not happy, she will bite someone. We have to restrain her. Actually, for a case like this in the general community, how could she be part of the pandemic prevention measures? It's impossible. Even the family can't take care of her, so they send her to the hospital.
If some mental disabilities wear a mask, they feel stifled or like they can't breathe or otherwise uncomfortable, so they would just take off the mask. If we encourage them to wear a mask, they will actually be angry and lose their temper.
A study in the United States shows that the death rate of the general population from COVID-19 is 4.7%, but the death rate of mentally disabled people is as high as 8.5%, which is 1.8 times that of the general population.
Mentally impaired may have 1.5 to 2 times probability of serious COVID hospitalization or death because of the 3 highs and some other chronic diseases or obesity. There are some other problems due to negligence of health care, etc.
Mortality rate of people with mental illness after infection is high. The probability of COVID-19 infection is 65% higher than that of the normal person. Like Ajin, this kind of person often forgets to wear a mask when they walk around the community.
She has no concept of protecting herself. She just wants to go to the market to drink alcohol. When there was the pandemic, we didn't let her go running around. We must watch her, otherwise she would just run around.
If the mentally impaired would walk around, they will come into contact with others. In fact, he will increase the risk of infection for himself and even his family members who live with him.
There are more than 127,700 mental patients under government supervision in Taiwan. After detecting the patients living in hospitals and residential mental institutions, there are more than 87,700 people with mental disabilities living with their own families scattered in various counties and cities. If they are not residents of long-term care institutions, they lose the priority for vaccinations. However, most of the patients with mental disabilities moving between the family and the community can become a gap in pandemic prevention. Long-term stigma in mental hospitals has been a concern for neighbors, limiting their capacity. Therefore, the domestic hospitals with the greatest capacity of accommodating patients with psychiatric disorders were set up in the rural areas of Yuli Township, Hualien. The Yuli Hospital, operated by the Ministry of Health and Welfare, has more than 2,200 patients with mental disabilities, of which 38% are elderly people over 65. Mental symptoms, plus the 3 highs caused by advanced age, makes them a high-risk group for severe illness after being infected by COVID.
During the pandemic, we have to wear full-body protective clothing, including goggles, face shields, and gloves. We must be fully protected.
Medical staff protect themselves and avoid spreading the virus to hospitalized patients, preventing cluster infections. In fact, both hospitals and residential institutions attach great importance to the prevention of pandemic for people with mental disabilities.
For mental patients as well as us, as long as the virus comes in, it will spread very quickly because we all live in a relatively dense area.
This is the Castle Rehabilitation Home. Currently, more than 60 residents with mental disabilities have been housed here. How does the hospital avoid group infections with such a large amount of people?
When we come back, we have to take our body temperature, then wash our hands, and then change our mask. We clean and disinfect our own room 3 times to adapt to anti-pandemic life here.
When they come back after an outing, we will take their temperature and ask where they have been. We will also limit the number of people in the living room and try to maintain social distancing.
Life during the pandemic is quite hard, and patients with mental illness need all of our help to keep safe and healthy.
Tzu volunteers from Cerrito City, the United States, held a winter aid distribution for needy families, giving them warm quilts, anti-pandemic supplies, food, a $50 cash card, and a special handmade red doll. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you and goodbye.